Years and years and years ago, they came up with the Planet of the Apes. Planet of the Apes has been one of the biggest franchise of all time. They've had several movies, like 300 Planet of the Apes movies. They had a lot of them. There's a new one out now called The Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And it tells a story after Caesar. You know, Caesar was the leader of the apes. He started everything. They even mentioned him in the original Roddy McDowell movies. But, you know, he's the first one to go, no, and speak. And to be honest, apes hearing you speak for 100 years, they wouldn't develop the ability to speak. But, you know, it's the sci-fi movies, man. And this is what happens in the sci-fi movies. You talk to an ape, it might talk back. That's what happens. So they hint that it was more than 100 years after Caesar, and then they also say that it might be just they hint that it might be just a generation after Caesar. They don't really clarify that, but Caesar's gone. And this is at least one generation after Caesar. I thought it would be more the way the world looks. It looks like it would be more. But these apes talk. The Planet of the apes talk. But they're still just apes because they haven't conquered technology. And at the same time, they're more than apes because they help to wipe out humanity, and they're hunting them, and they're building huts and stuff like that. So they're not just acting just like apes and, you know, sleeping on the ground and whatever. You know, some of them would sleep in the trees, but they're still not doing just that. They are evolving, but not really like humans. They use nets, spears. In the movies prior to this, they used guns. They're mastering electricity, you know, through the help of an outside force. And there's a girl, May, who is helping them. And when I saw May and I saw what was going on, and then you see the ending, I say to myself, you know what, Magneto was right. Takes me right back to X-Men 97. Magneto was right. You can't trust the humans. You know, you can't trust them. Because, spoiler, May seemed to be a good person, but ultimately she wasn't really a good person. She does, you know, a bad thing to the apes. And she kind of uses them, man. So there's a hint that, and a spoiler, there's a hint that there's going to be a war, which is another one of the movies, you know, Battle for the Planet of the Apes, where the humans and the apes battle one another. And it looks like they're setting up for that because the humans are pretty much decimated. There's only small camps of humans. In fact, some apes say that they've never seen a human in their lifetime. Some of the apes say they call a human echo just because it does what they do. They see one human. And another ape. And going back to thinking that they existed way after Caesar, maybe 100 years or more, they say, you know, in Caesar's time, humans used to be in herds. Used to be a lot of them. So they went from the apes gaining the knowledge to speak, to the apes rebelling, to the apes turning on the human and finding their own settlements and fighting with the humans, to the apes conquering the world, apparently, you know, living pretty much everywhere. And they don't produce like that. They don't mass produce like the humans. I mean, humans are everywhere, you know. There's not too many places you can go and not run into a human on Earth. But there's a lot of places you can go and not run into an ape. So, but they're apparently pretty much everywhere now. And I don't know. This movie had a lot of action. I I preferred the way they did the apes in the previous movies. Then this one, you can kind of see how they're moving. That, oh, that's a dude with like an ape drawn on him. They CGI'd an ape over his body. You could see that. I mean, you can't see the human through it, but you could tell. I mean, you can tell. And it was good action, but the story was lacking. The story didn't make a lot of sense. The humans are wiped out, pretty much, and there's an ape that calls himself Caesar, like Caesar, Proximus Caesar, you know, a copy of Caesar, and he is trying to get inside of a giant door. You later find out that it's a military base that he's trying to get into, a vault. And they show all of these things that are in there that could help humans, that could help the apes. And May is in there, and she grabs one. It's a military base. She sees guns everywhere, tons of rifles and ammunition and explosives. She grabs one gun, and I can only assume she didn't grab any extra ammunition. She grabbed one gun and a computer component, and that's it. I mean, first, I'm wondering if it's more than one generation. It has to be, because May could not have grown up on a military base and known the layout of the base, where to get that component, where the guns were. She couldn't have known all of that about the base. And even if she did, then that means she knew a lot about the base. There were tanks and all kinds of stuff. She could have gotten one of those tanks and pretty much ended the war. Because at this point, the apes are still throwing spears and using nets. You know, one person in a tank will end all of that. It's over, it's done. So she walked past all of that. She walked past all of the good stuff. They tried to make it like one of those heist movies where they break into a building and all of the lackeys are like, oh, look, diamonds. And the leader's like, no, this is the true prize. And I'm thinking, but the diamonds and the money, that's prizes too. Get that too. You still got to sell whatever that thing is. She is like that. She walks past all of these great things and she's like, I'm going to get one handgun. Yeah, that'll even the score. I didn't understand that. I didn't understand it. It didn't make any sense. The story didn't make sense. Some of the humans can speak. Some of the humans lost their ability to speak. But there's still humans who can speak, scattered all over the world. Why is it that some can't speak? How come some can't? They never explain it. Some can speak, some can't. When a human speaks, it blew their minds. They were like, wow, that human spoke. It blew their minds. So clearly, at least one generation, probably two or more, they've never heard a human speak. And she's just like, yeah, I can speak. And when you meet her, she's like dressed a certain way, sort of like the other humans. But if you take a close look, you can see that her clothing is more modern. It's just dirty. And eventually, she gets into the military base and finds one pair of boots that just happen to fit her. But she doesn't take any other. It's cold and she's freezing. She doesn't take it. She found some boots, but she didn't take any, some dry pants, a jacket, something. And why were the uniforms there? Did she take it off of somebody that was dead that was in there? I don't know. Because in a military base where you're going to find weapons, you're not going to find uniforms. There's not in the same place. It's two different places. It's like going to Walmart and going into a place that sells ice cream and then saying, yeah, I think I'll buy a pair of sneakers. It's not the same place. It's two different places. So she's in there in an armory. She's in there and she gets clothes. And the only clothes was a pair of boots. She got a pair of boots. And she didn't even lace them up. They were like open, I guess, so she could still look all frontiery, out in the woodsy. I'm looking at the movie and I'm like, oh, some action. I like that. And then they start talking and I was like, well, that didn't make any sense at all. It didn't make sense. It didn't make sense to me. You know, if you're going to the movies to watch a bunch of apes fight some humans and some explosions and stuff and a little bit of drama and action for almost just for action's sake, this is your movie. If you're going to go in and watch a movie and try to understand the story, I can make a recommendation. It wouldn't be this one. It's not a bad movie, but when you go in expecting something to follow a franchise as large as Planet of the Apes and to tell a story, and they're basically just in the ring punching each other in the face, you're like, oh, well, you guys went in a different direction. It was okay. It was extra medium. But that's what I think. I don't want to tell us the whole story about everything that happened. I just want to say that it was not. And they had good actors. They just didn't give them anything to work with. Again, that's what I think. More importantly, what do you think? Now we had a chance to talk about the video. Let's talk about it some more in the comments. And as always, if you like the video, if you like the content, subscribe. And then like.
Popcorn passport. Get your popcorn passport.